We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke, Britton Financial Partners. This is the Finances podcast, and today's guest is Bridgette Kelly, from one of the principals at Harwood Andrews, heading up their family law division. Anyone who's listened to the podcast before has heard a few of Bridgette's colleagues in Tara Patch and Daniela Pavlovic that have been on before. So, Bridgette, welcome to the Finances podcast.
Thanks, Jay. It's really great to be here today. I was really looking forward to it.
Is this your first podcast?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Well, hopefully it's the first of many. We can have you back on and talk all things travel. I know in the list that you sent through, lots of things to talk about. And I know you and I have crossed paths over the years, professionally and in sort of social circles. Yep. What I like to do on these podcasts is actually go back as far as you're happy to get a bit of background on you. Yep. And we get to the point where we bring us up to date. You're back at Harwood Andrews after a bit of a hiatus. Yes. But let's go back to where you grew up and how you ended up where you are today. Yeah, sure. So do you want to go right back? You go back as far as you like. When I asked Peter that, he went back to his great-grandparents, and I said maybe not that far back, Peter. No, not that far. So I've been pretty much Geelong based, sort of started off living in Werribee when I was born in Werribee and had a few years there and then a bit of time in the country in Little River and started links with Geelong there when I started going to Morongo Girls College in grade 4. Were your parents, I know I said we won't go that far back, but was your family always in that Werribee area? No, my dad's Welsh, so he migrated to Australia in the early 1970s and then met my mum and... was your mum Welsh or not? No, she's Australian. So my dad met her, came here. He was in the Merchant Navy and my mum at some social event and then they fell in love and he moved here and immigrated and lived in Melbourne originally and then moved to Werribee to bought a block of land and started there and then we just kept moving. So we moved to the river. When Werribee was just a paddock? It was just a paddock. Yeah. And what were your memories of growing up in Werribee like? So you were there for most of primary school? No, we moved when I was about 7. Okay. Moved to Little River. Yeah, so I only had two years at school. You didn't move that far. No. It still was a lot further though. You know, people were like, what are you going to Little River for? It's too far away, but it's only 10, 15 minutes down the road. Did you buy another acreage there? Were you on a farm? Yeah, not a farm. We had 10 acres. So we thought we would get like some sheep or something like that, but we just had a dog and a cat. Yeah. What did you do with the 10 acres? Well, it was sort of divided into two. So we had a 5-acre block and then another 5-acre block. And the 5-acre block, we used to adjust horses for the next door neighbours. Okay. But we rarely went into that block. So did you ride horses as a kid? I did have lessons. Pony club? I did. I didn't do pony club. I had lessons for a while. And then, would ride the neighbours' horses every now and again. But, didn't really pursue it. And you went from, Little River from 8 to when? We moved to Geelong when I was in about year 8. Year 9, so 14, 15. And that was to Oberon? No, I went to Morongo. Morongo. And then stayed at Morongo and then in year 10 moved across to Geelong College. Okay. When Morongo closed. Oh, very good. Yeah. And with your move, you're in the legal industry, you've ended up in family law. I won't try and age you too quickly, but what was the impetus for you to enter the legal fraternity? I mean, you said your dad was in the sort of the Merchant Navy. Yeah. What did your mum do? She's a school teacher. Okay. So she retired a few years ago, but always a primary school teacher. So where did the interest in legal studies or law come from? I get asked that a bit. And I think in high school I did legal studies and I really liked the rights and justice concepts of legal studies. And then just one day went to an open, you go to the uni open days and went and checked out the law school at Deakin and said, this is what I'm going to do. Deakin Geelong? Deakin Geelong. So it wasn't the waterfront then? Was Warn Ponds? Out at Warn Ponds. Yep. And then started just... I don't know, once I get my mind set on something, I'm usually going for it. Yeah. But, of course, studying law and then practicing law is very different to legal studies, sort of rights and justice. When you're in the thick of it every day, it's not. I thought I might have done something like human rights law or something. And then did you go straight out of high school, straight into uni? So you didn't have a gap year or anything like that? I didn't have a gap year. I did do an exchange program for 6 months. To the motherland? Back to the motherland, went to the University of Wales for 6 months, which was fantastic. I stayed with my aunt and uncle for a little bit and then stayed on campus for when I was actually at
the course, doing the course.
So in what year of your studies was that?
That was pretty much halfway through. So it was third year. So when I got back, I only had 2 years to go because it was 5-year
Was that coordinated by the university or did you?
Fabulous. Yep. No, coordinated by the university. They gave us, I think I had about $1,500, which covered the airfare.
Okay.
And then your HECS, they did like a straight swap. So they would have people coming from University of Wales and we would go over. And so you just paid your normal HECS. It sort of covered each other. Like the person who was over in Australia, they paid their fees and I kind of used theirs.
Yeah.
So
what was that experience like? Was it 6 months? So you studied and lived with family?
And travelled.
Through Europe?
Yeah. So I did, the Kentucky type tour. Did a couple of those and travelled, met fabulous friends there who, still in contact with, which, best friends really. You just make those people.
Have you been back?
I've been back a couple of times, yep. Probably not as many as I would like. Now you've got kids, it's a long way to go, but one of my really good friends comes over quite a bit and she's coming back in December.
Great.
So very looking forward to that.
Yeah. And so 6 months there, you came back, you finished. How long was your law degree?
5 years in all. So, and then a year of sort of training where you do either work in-house at a law firm or you do a course. And I did the course option at Leo Cussons in Melbourne. So,
okay. And did you travel to Melbourne or did you go and live in Melbourne?
Just got the train every day. No, just got the train every day.
How'd you find that?
It was good at the time. I don't think it was as busy back then as what it is now and, it's quite hard to get a seat on the train.
Could you imagine yourself working in Melbourne now?
I did for years. I thought I would do work in Melbourne and I went for all those sort of, corporate type positions that are available in the Melbourne type firms and then wasn't successful in getting a position there, which I was really disappointed about in the time. But I think it's worked out for the best because when I look back and think, I don't think I would have been suited to that sort of really commercial field of law, like contract law. And then I fell into family law. I didn't study it at uni and at the Leo Cussons course, I did a sort of a unit on it. And I was like, who would like to do this? I don't want to do this.
So what was appealing about family law? And I know we mentioned just before we jumped on air that anyone who's wanting to understand a little bit more about family law, go back and listen to the episode we did with Tara.
Yes.
And we've also had a couple of other family lawyers on. So we won't go too deep in the reads about family law, but what was it about family law that really intrigued you?
I think, just going back a step, I actually was offered a position in family law and I was sort of working at a general law practice and thought, I'm not really, I don't want to do general law, I want to specify. So then I went, I'll give family law a go and see if I like it. And then once I actually started it, I thought, this is right. This is my cup of tea. This is where I'm supposed to be. It's people contact. I like to talk. I like, helping people. You can really do really good outcomes for people, especially in family law. People are at, really difficult times personally. And so I get a lot out of helping people get through that as best they can. And you get a combination of court work. I do not a huge amount of court work because we try not to go to court, but I do a lot of mediations, again, that sort of really one-on-one interactions with clients. And so I think it suits me and what my skill set is.
I might footnote that idea about not wanting to go to court, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one of the things from a family law point of view I was curious about was once you landed in family law, have you stayed there the entire time or have you digressed? No?
No. Coming up to 20 years practice this year, which is pretty exciting.
So how early on into your practice did you get that?
It was literally, 5 months. So I worked at this other firm for five months, maybe it was 6 months, it wasn't long, and then I've just worked in family law ever since. So I say pretty much family law for the whole time.
Those sliding doors moments are amazing, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I always say, take that opportunity. Take it. You never know where it's going to go lead and what you're going to enjoy, especially early on in career.
Yeah. So let's run through the timeline of your legal career up until now. So which practice did you work at? And you've obviously ended up back at Harwood Andrews. So they've given a bit of a clue there of where you started.
Yeah, so originally I started at Alison Rowe, gave me my first start in family law, which was Rowe Lawyers then, which is now Carl & Rowe. Actually, I think it's now changed back to Carl Law. And then I worked there for a few years and then a job came up at Harwood Andrews 2006. So I went across there and that was excellent early career. I'm starting there in a much bigger field or bigger firm and worked there for nearly 11 years.
Who did you work with when you were there?
Yeah, Kim Henderson, Peter Lumberg and Linton Drever, and also Lisa Hunt was there as well. So, And then I took a change in career path and went and worked at White Eastern Moore for a few years. And then Coulter Legal and then came back to Harwood's in January this year. Yeah,
Geelong is, it's interesting. I think I was talking to someone else about this recently about how Geelong is such a great place, from a professional point of view.
Yeah.
And also we'll get to sort of the community element of what you do and how great it is to be part of the Geelong community. But
Yes.
I think there is, such a degree of respect amongst a lot of the business owners, whether they be small, medium or large enterprises. It's great to see people actually progress through different businesses, get great experience, but also continue to have those great connections through the community. So what actually led you back to Harwood Andrews? What ultimately brought you back to Harwood Andrews now as a principal and as a business owner?
Yes, which is really exciting. I'm really excited to be a principal now. Just started on the 1st of July. I think it was really getting back to that team environment and also career opportunities was what brought it back and brought me back. And being in a firm with lots of options available for all staff.
Yep. So to give some context around Harwood Andrews' size of practice, how many lawyers are at Harwood Andrews?
We've got about 150 staff. That's across Melbourne and Geelong.
Which includes the Slade and Legal?
And includes Slade and Legal as well.
Okay.
Yep.
And how's it been a shift from being an employee to now a business owner?
Yes. Good. Lots of different thinking. You've got to really shift that mindset. So only early days yet, but already just thinking differently, which I'm excited about.
Yep.
Also looking more strategically, I suppose. It's not just about yourself anymore in terms of looking out for your career. It's about everyone's career and the progress of the firm, which is good. I'm excited about it.
With that strategic thinking, we sort of skimmed over a couple of things in terms of your involvement in the local community. I touched on it briefly, but I think maybe, I can't remember whether it was where we originally crossed paths, but there was a group in Geelong that we were part of the founding of, which was the Geelong Young Professionals. I was trying to think back of where, I remember one of the first events that we had next door here, where I think we had a young South African footballer come out, Matutu, and spoke to a group of young professionals. And I think the idea of that at the time, even though I can't class myself as young, maybe still professional, but was that there wasn't really an avenue to connect like-minded younger professionals. There was this fantastic culture and community in Geelong amongst the sort of senior principals, but the next layer down, it was missing. It was completely missing.
Yep.
And so Geelong Young Professionals was born. And it's got to be 15 years ago now, is it?
Yeah, I would reckon. We would have started it about in 2008-ish.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So I remember we had about a year of planning, didn't we? We sort of came all together and wanted to get the concept right.
Yes.
And a really good plan of how we would do it. So it wouldn't just be a one-off. It would be something that kept going, 3 or 4 events a year.
Yeah.
Which I think was great. And I think it was a fabulous team effort. It still is a fabulous team effort because you can't put the events on without a good team behind them. But I always remember sourcing sponsorship so that we could get the really cool, keen, really good speakers out to get the people to come, but also to inspire the local young professionals and get that rapport building amongst them, as you say, to build those connections so that it's not just the top level sort of managers having those connections. It's really all the way through organisations. They have connections with others throughout Geelong. Yeah,
it's pretty cool to see GYP still going strong.
I think it's fantastic.
It's just unbelievable. Now, I mentioned that you have you're a people person.
Yes.
You love to talk.
Yes.
You love to help people.
Yep.
GYP, in part, was helping people connect.
Yep.
That has extended over the last number of years to your involvement in some local philanthropic work with P500.
P500, Geelong Community Foundation.
Yep. So do you want to talk about those two particularly?
Love to. Yeah.
And how you got involved and then where they sit today.
Yes. So, P500 is a collective giving group based in Geelong, and that actually started, it was Gail Rogers, who's the CEO of the Geelong Community Foundation, came and spoke at a GYP event about philanthropy.
Wow.
And she said in that event that she had this idea about P500. And would anyone be interested in getting involved? And a few of us put our hands up and said, yes, we would like to be involved. And then we started a committee and then it went from there. So P500 is a collective giving group. Everyone donates $500. Half is put into a corpus, so invested, and the other half is added to a grant that gets given out each year. And what is unique about it is that all the donors get together at an event in November each year, and 3 shortlisted organisations will pitch for why they should get the grant. And then the donors vote then and there, and then the grant is given out. So it's giving back to the local community. It's getting involved as well with choosing who is going to get the grant. And then it's actually seeing that impact the following year when you can find out information about how that grant has impacted that organisation. So it's a wonderful group. It started out with about 80 donors, and we've just literally closed this year's one, and we've got 280 donors. So, and it's got a corpus of over 300,000 now over the last 7 years.
I was going to say some of the, I think the last year's winning nominee was Wombats Wish, am I right? So Peter, who we've had Nikki Dunn on the podcast before, and Peter's on the board of Wombats Wish, such an amazing organisation, so well deserving of that recognition. Like, we're not talking an insignificant amount of funds either. So if you maybe give some context to the top, you said about 300,000 invested, but Wombats Wish received how much
last year? It's gone up slightly. They got about $75,000 was the grant, and this year the grant is $79,000.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And maybe if we give a shout out to some of the other nominees for that, who else was in that pool? was we might
Tiny Dots, which is an organisation based on early intervention with children who potentially are showing signs of some learning difficulties and things. So it's all involved about getting in early so that treatments and therapies can happen so that perhaps those learning difficulties minimised or treated early to help prevent anything.
Yep. Any others that come to mind? Was River's Gift there? Or
no, it wasn't River's Gift. It's based in Mount Dunedin, Foundation 61, but the female organisation that's the new facility out at Mount Dunedin, and they wanted a bus to help facilitate the women and the families who were out there at the time. So the good thing with P500 is it is part of Geelong Community Foundation, so those organisations who are unsuccessful on that night, their applications can go through to the normal grant rounds and be assessed for in the following grant years for the Geelong Community Foundation. And thankfully, both of those organisations did get funding this year. Foundation 61's funding actually was combined with some other organisations within Geelong. Yeah. So that was good. So that's, collaborating with others to help fund things, which is great.
Yeah, I think that we mentioned, again, on one of the other podcasts that we did with maybe it was with River's Gift, been with Alex, where we're talking about that collaborative approach for organisations in Geelong. One of the challenges for any of these organisations is trying to raise funds to be able to do what they need to do. Yep. And I think the idea of actually joining forces in some way or some shape or form to be able to get recognition and also get funding is just an amazing thing. So, I mean, congratulations to you on taking that little seed of an idea and then creating what you've done with P500. It's phenomenal.
It's fabulous, and it's not me. There's lots of team behind the scenes. We've had lots of committee members, and the driving force has always been Gail Rogers. She had that great idea, and she knew that it was going to kick off. She just needed a team behind her to help drive it, which is great.
I think we might have to get Gail on the podcast at some point, for sure.
Yep.
For sure. Anything else on P500 that you want, any shout out or any comments that you want to make about what's coming up with P500?
P500 unfortunately has just closed, so we can't have any more donations this year, but it is open again next year, and I would encourage anyone who would like to donate to be part of it, because it's not an a large amount of money, but in the scheme of things it is a significant amount. But over the course of the year you could we do have payment options available, so it's a good organisation to get involved in if you want to have some buy-in as well.
So if someone wanted to get involved, where do they go?
You can Google P500, which obviously stands for Philanthropy 500, but we shortened it because everyone gets philanthropy wrong when you go to say it quickly. But Google P500 or the Geelong Community Foundation. And of course, or reach out to me and I'll be happy to have a chat about P500 with any of your listeners.
Brilliant. Yep. And how much of your time are you spending with your sort of volunteer work? Because you give a lot of your time, Bridge. I
do. I'm very fortunate. I work part-time at the moment, so I work formally 3 days a week, although, obviously you work a little bit more than that. But I think probably on one of the days a week I'm doing something for volunteering my time with one of the organisations I'm involved in. Yeah. So it's quite a bit, but I enjoy it.
How do you... This might be a little bit more of a granular question around how you, as a professional with the time you spend volunteering, your time and family, how do you actually manage all of that to do what you do?
Yeah,
Any
I have
tips or tricks?
Yeah, I have a very, very supportive husband who allows me to do all of this, encourages me to do that. So I'm very, very fortunate. But I'm also fortunate with Geelong Community Foundation. They always make their meetings usually on my non-work days, which I'm very, very lucky with. They're usually on a Tuesday and I don't work on a Tuesday. But yeah, it's just time management and just trying to do it during work hours in terms of on my days, non-official work days, I try and do the volunteer things on that so it doesn't enter too much in terms of family time.
Yeah. Have you always been good with time management or is it something you've had to sort of evolve over?
No, I think I've been pretty good. I'm pretty efficient. I think, when I know I want to do something, I'll just get in and do it and then just get it done because I know I've got to move on to the next thing or I find I work better if I've got limited time because then you get it done. I think if I've got heaps of time, I kind of procrastinate.
I was trying to think of this principle. Someone mentioned this the other day. There's a principle about the shorter the amount of time you've got, the more urgent it will become and you will get stuff done.
I agree. Totally.
I'll think of that principle and I'll put it in the show notes. I want to take a little bit of a segue to travel. We touched a little bit on your return trip to Wales, but in your spare time, you get an opportunity to travel.
Yes.
Where have you been? Where do you want to go? What's on the bucket list?
I've been very fortunate. I've done a lot of travel in my younger days. A little bit, overseas. I've been to many places, Europe, Asia, Americas. I would like to go to South America. I'd love to go to Morocco. I had a girlfriend who travelled by bike from London to Melbourne, bike riding.
I was trying to work out how she rode across the ocean.
She caught planes at various points. But yeah, I find that quite inspirational. I'd like to do something like that. Maybe not that far, but some sort of bike riding. My husband says, no, you can get faster by car. So he might be the backup vehicle. But that particular girlfriend, Frederica, we talked about maybe doing something in America at some point. In a few years, not anytime soon. She's probably forgotten that she said that to me.
I watched, was it Ewan McGregor's? I can't remember what the name of the documentary was of him riding through South America on electric bikes, but just amazing. The ability just to go and see the world
exactly
in that form it would be pretty amazing. And
a bit slower pace. It's not just driving somewhere and then getting there.
Well, I think one of the mistakes we make when we travel is that we try and, mush it all into a short period of time.
Yep.
The ability to have, 2-3 months where you can actually just go and experience the culture and be part of it. You mentioned you like the idea of going down to South America and maybe seeing some of the sort of Spanish heritage.
Yes. We went to Mexico and I loved the Mayan sort of heritage and some of the pyramids and things there. I'd love to go to Machu Picchu, Easter Island.
Yep. Have you been to Spain?
Yes, been to Spain. I love that. The Moroccan influence there was amazing. I didn't get to Morocco. You can catch a ferry across down for the, a day kind of trip. Yeah. I couldn't do it when I was there. So
I haven't been to Spain, but Peter on the podcast a week ago. Peter's just got back from Spain. He just spent 2 months in Spain.
Wow.
So, very envious and keen to get over there at some point. Seemed like everyone in our winter was over in the European summer. They're either in Greece or
Italy.
Spain.
Yeah,
Italy. Yes, that's right.
The Mediterranean.
That's it. All right, let's take another little segue back into family law. And I said we won't get too granular in this, but one of the things I think was interesting when we talked about Harwood Andrews and particularly like family law from the perspective of the point of difference that you bring to the table. We talked a little bit before we started recording about the complexities of sort of small business owners. And I mentioned that, and this is not talking out of school too much, Peter won't mind me saying that, like having experienced firsthand parents that have separated with levels of complexity, it presents some big challenges. And so maybe if you talk to that as an area of family law and sort of how your point of difference when dealing with those types of clients.
So, our family law team's got lots of experience. Lisa was a registrar of the family court. I'm accredited specialist in family law. We've also got a really great team within Harwood Andrews, got all really good complex skills in terms of business advice and structuring and things like that. So we pride ourselves on being able to provide expert advice to clients in respect of that business commercial interest space, whether or not it's the spouse wanting to retain those business interests and sort of making sure at the end of that separation that business remains with that. So it's a smooth transition over for that party to retain. or it's the party who's extricating themselves from that business interest and making sure that they can move on and invest assets that they receive out of the property settlement. So we've got really great expertise in both, wanting to resolve things without going to court. So as best as possible, we've got that resolution focus, and we've got the skills and expertise in respect of, those complex commercial dealings that you would just want to make sure everything's done extremely correctly, because you don't want anything to come back at you later that wasn't dealt with. Yeah. We make sure that gets completed properly.
I think the 2 points that you mentioned that are really appealing from a financial advisor's perspective and also from a personal perspective is having that in-house capability. Yep. I know we value it greatly, the fact that Harwood Andrews can almost be the one-stop shop for us in terms of different types of advice, whether it be contract law or family law or estate planning. And one of the things that we recognise in our world, and the same in your world, is everything is interconnected. There is some sort of correlation or connection between someone's estate plan and their investment management and their tax position, their structures. Having the ability to actually go and draw on that expertise, which is one of the reasons why we value bringing the likes of yourselves and Daniela and Tara and all the crew at Harwood's when we need that expertise. I think that's super important. But one of the other things which I think is a misnomer when it comes to family law is that everyone is sort of under the impression that if I get some sort of family law advice, I'm going to end up in the courts.
Yes.
And that the solicitors and the lawyers are going to push me in that direction.
Absolutely not. It's certainly my focus. I want to empower people with information and advice so they can make decisions. And if the situation's right where you can have a conversation with the other spouse, then be able to have that conversation with the right information so you can negotiate, but have the security of having a lawyer behind you giving you those information, and then to step in when needed. So certainly sometimes we're needed just to do some letters of correspondence, or we're going to do a mediation or a roundtable conference. And then very few matters actually get to that court stage. So certainly my practice is not court-based at all. We have very few court matters that have to go to court.
What percentage would get there?
Oh, well, to get to a trial, it's only like maybe 5% would get to a trial. To get to the first court date, so you've got the first court date and then you've got a compulsory mediation. So sometimes you will go to the court date for various reasons, like the other side's not participating and you need to get some sort of timeline in place, or there's some disagreement about something and you want to get to that first court date. But most of my matters I will definitely resolve by correspondence, so negotiation, or at a mediation.
So what's the key to, I mean, again, people enter into family law discussions at various points. Some come having, made mutual agreements and just say, I need you to draw it up. Others come needing advice. Others come when there's chaos.
Yes.
But in terms of, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask you anyway. What's the ideal scenario for you when dealing with a family law situation? What do you like to see? And then where there is chaos, how do you deal with it?
Okay. I like to see that someone is willing to potentially have a conversation with the other spouse and that they both want to have a good outcome. Because if they both want to make sure that they get that fair and equitable settlement, then you're going to be able to talk to that client frankly and say, well, this is what I think the range is. This is what I think you should sort of start at, and this is where I think you're going to end up. And then also looking big picture. So, don't sweat the little things. What are the big ticket items that you've got in this property
settlement? Don't sweat the frequent flyer points.
Yeah, exactly. They do get swapped and changed. But, what are those key items, and what is it you really want to get out of the property settlement? Are you really focused on where there's children, making sure you've still got that working relationship with that other spouse? Because you're getting, say, a little bit more that the other side might be really upset about. Is it worth that if it's going to impede that relationship moving forward? So I'm very practical about, well, yes, we want the best possible outcome for you, but what are those key ticket items, and can we think big picture all the way along?
So sometimes when you're very practical and very objective, it can be hard to recognise the emotive nature of a situation. How do you deal with that with clients? So when you've got people that really can't see the forest for the trees in terms of the objective reality, how do you manage those kinds of situations?
That can be difficult, but I suppose it comes with a bit of experience as well. You understand how to talk to that client in the language that they will hear, trying to work that out, and then talking realistically. I'll be frank with clients and say, look, I know you want that, but I don't think you're actually going to achieve that. I can try for you, but I think the realistic outcome is somewhere along this line. And then you sort of go along. Most times, you come out where you think you're going to come out, but it depends. It's often in this day and age also an economic decision. So you say, well, okay, we can argue that point and you're going to spend X amount on that, but is it worth it in the scheme of things with what the range is that we're talking about in terms of an outcome? So sometimes people will then consider it and then go more along that economic line of, is it worth going to court, or is it, can you compromise your position in order to get the best possible outcome now without having to spend more costs on legal, and you probably will get a similar outcome anyway?
Yeah, I think this is... people always do question when they are going through a situation like this, question getting good support and good advice and thinking about cost.
Yep.
The way I think about it, and this is, I think, one of the other areas that we could do better as financial advisors and family lawyers, is actually make sure that we do really convey the value of getting that support and getting that support behind people so that they can have a sort of third-party, emotionally detached view of someone's circumstances, because most clients, when they come in here, there's very, very emotive situations, and for us it's about making sure that we can kind of step them back a little bit and just look at that objective reality, and then make sure that they know that there actually is value in actually getting good support, good family law support, and support that can look at the complexities of their situation.
Yep, exactly. I always say it's a team effort. They might have their personal support, and we might have personal, their personal supports coming to appointments, but also it's that professional support. So you're getting the financial advice, you're getting the accounting advice, you're getting that outside. So you can look at it as a total, as you say, a package. Yeah,
I think that, what do they call it? The Venn diagram of the overlapping circles, with the client in the middle.
Exactly.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it is one of the other principles in our business where we're so welcoming of those other professionals. Like, there's been in the financial planning industry, historically, there's been an idea of people sort of really protecting their own turf. And it's been a little bit like that in the accounting industry for a number of years. But what I've seen of recent time is there's very much a collaborative effort to make sure that accountants, financial advisors, brokers, solicitors are all communicating and talking for the client's best outcome.
Exactly. And that's what it is. It's all about the client's best outcome in whatever situation, being able to move forward and go along with their goals and, strategies that they have.
Yeah. Last segue before we wrap this up, Bridge, you mentioned that this is a pretty good segue away from family law. It's baking.
Yes, for those who know me, I love to bake. I love to eat cake as well.
Not only bake, but you enter the Geelong show every year.
I do.
What are you entering into?
Well, I would love to win the sponge. So, I've been entering for years and years. We've got some girlfriends and we enter each year.
Yeah.
And we could enter up to 8 things. So you've got to bake the day before and then you've got to deliver it on a Wednesday morning.
So there's 8 different things. So there's a sponge category.
So there's a sponge category. We might do scones. We might do banana cake, orange cake, slices. You could do breads and jams. I don't tend to enter those. I'm more cakes. So I'll do 2 types of sponge. You'll do a plain sponge and a chocolate sponge.
So what makes a good sponge?
I think it's got to be light and airy. It's got to be quite big and it's got to look fluffy. Yeah, I love eating sponge. Everyone loves sponge.
Sponge. What's the heritage of sponge?
I don't know.
It's not. I was going to say it's not a Welsh heritage thing.
No. Oh, you mean for me personally? No, I just started making them, and then somehow we got on to entering into the Geelong show. And I've done it for years.
Have you ever placed?
Yeah, placed a few times.
Yeah. What did you place with the sponge? Or?
I've got a few seconds and a few thirds in the sponge, both plain sponge and chocolate sponge.
Do they give you feedback as to where you...
Sometimes you can go along, depending on the year. They do have open judging where you can hear what's, critique about it. But yeah, I've got a first place in the banana cake, and I got runner-up best in show for the banana cake.
Wow.
1 year.
I'm sure all the staff at Harwood Andrews are pretty happy with you bringing your baked goods in.
Yeah, I usually will do some trial and then get them to. The key was I would take the cake in and then I would say they had to critique it for me. So they'd have to tell me what I could improve. But yes, I'll have to do that again.
Yeah. Banana cake. I like a banana cake. I might have to get you to throw some of your tested banana cake in here at some point.
Happy to.
Yeah. We've been going for nearly 40 minutes, Bridge. Is there anything else on the family law front, the baking front, or the philanthropic front that you wanted to talk about before I let you go?
Well, just on the philanthropic front, I always thought that you had to be extremely wealthy to be philanthropic. So what I would want your listeners to know is you don't have to be. You can be philanthropic in your time. You know, I think a lot of us don't talk about how we're philanthropic. So a lot of people, Australians, are very good at donating. And I think we all could be encouraged to talk about it a bit more, because I think people know that you're donating to something, they might like to donate to it as well. So I'd encourage people to not think that philanthropic is such, a big thing.
Yeah.
It's part of everyday life, or can be.
And certainly a very, very strong part of the Geelong community. I mean,
absolutely.
Geelong is unbelievable in terms of its giving.
Absolutely.
And to your point around giving, letting people know what you're contributing to. That's one of the other reasons we've had a lot of the charities that we support on the podcast, because we do want people to know what exists out there.
Absolutely.
And people have, various interests, and maybe they have certain personal circumstances that might gravitate them towards a particular charity, but you've got to talk about it.
Yes.
You've got to actually give your voice a platform and let people know what you're doing. So again, a massive shout out to you, Bridgette, on your work with P500, the work you did on getting GYP up and running. You're welcome back as a partner and business owner at Harwood Andrews, and it's been awesome to catch up and talk all things travel, baking, family law. Hopefully you'll come back on for an episode 2 or 3 in the future.
I would love to. I've really enjoyed today. Thank you so much for asking me to come on. It's been great, Jay.
Awesome, Bridge. Thanks.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.